Where DeepSeek did really well is they use something called a mixture of experts.
Every time I, look on social media or watch the news or anything, I'm hearing about how AI has taken another 800 or 1,200 jobs.
I think there's going to be a massive period of abundance of AI that will result into this beautiful world that we've never thought was possible. Now, granted, that's without assuming there's a World War III happening.
For those that follow, it's been about a month and a half since the last episode, so I literally forgot how to stop the music. But hey, we got a little extra performance there, and that's all good. Everybody, welcome back to another episode of 49 Volts. I am your host, Josh, as always, and we have a really great guest today. We have Don Morron, founder and CEO of HighlandTech, who's going to talk about AI, which is a boring subject that no one cares about or talks about at all these days. So, just hang in there with us on this one. How you doing, Don?
Good, man. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I appreciate you coming on, and I'm very excited to hear a little bit about, just give us a little elevator pitch on what you're doing here with HighlandTech, because AI is just all the rage and what everybody's talking about. So it sounds like that's what you're building that new business around.
Yeah, so businesses are absolutely riddled with repetitive and mundane tasks, and this is perfect for AI to help solve for. And so what HighlandTech does is we build something called agents or AI agents in order to automate business workflows. And a business workflow could be as simple as having an assistant that will schedule your appointments for you through natural language, as opposed to going back and forth like 5 times to find the time, or even using a booking link that could be simple, to things that could automate parts of your supply chain. There's really a spectrum of agents. There's a lot more to that. I'm sure we'll probably cover in the podcast, but at a high level, that's what we do. We're also an authorized reseller for Microsoft, IBM, and Google. And it's my belief that this tech stack, these companies will outlive a lot of the startups. And so we're really focused on using them as much as we can in order to deliver these agents to customers. And we do that a lot of times through their low-code platforms. One, for example, is Microsoft Copilot Studio in order to drop agent costs. And the last thing I'll say is that the vision that these companies have provided is that many companies, or all companies for that matter, will have agents working for them on their behalf. And so I would call it agent directory. They call them agent libraries, but there will be custom agents that will handle many of the workflows that are repetitive and mundane, to allow people to elevate into things that they really love or really would prefer to do, things that are more creative, things that require empathy, things that require human leadership, and allow these agents to go to work. And so one person could have 30 agents, 50 agents. This is basically, imagine that you've got the employees that you've always wanted to handle all the work you never wanted to do. They never take time off, they never get sick, and they never complain. And this is what we're striving to build is this technology that will close the gap between, I would call it, analog business to really what true form digital automation would look like in an AI world.
That's very cool. And I think you're a big service, to sum it up and put it into layman's terms for regular people like me. There's a lot of desire to use AI, and I think there's a lot of businesses out there saying, okay, well, we hear about all this AI and how great it is, but I asked ChatGPT and it just told me that it's a nice day outside. That they don't really know how to use it. So I think that's a really good business model, and I think that's pretty exciting to hear about that. So, but you did come in as an AI expert, and we have some recent, speaking of new entrants into the market, we have DeepSeek. Was making a lot of news. I believe, when did that hit? Last week, when they caused a lot of disruption. So I was kind of curious your thoughts there. I mean, I've heard from Pierre Bourdieu, he's put in some warnings more. He comes more from the security side of things, saying, hey, we don't really know what they're doing with this data. where this data is ending up. Obviously, NVIDIA is not a huge fan. That had an effect on their stock price there for a minute. ChatGPT, I think that caused some big eyes on them. Like, hey, if they did it for so much less with a lot less processing, what's going on with you? And then I also hear a lot of enthusiasm, people saying, wow, this is really great. They felt like it was faster and lighter and worked better. I mean, what do you think about all this? Because I mean, I'm not an expert, but I do know some, and I play one on TV occasionally. I mean, it almost seems to me like they kind of took some of the work that ChatGPT, that OpenAI put out there and improved on it. I mean, do you see this as real innovation or just an enhancement?
I do see it as innovation, actually. And there is speculation. I think it's still speculation on whether or not they built off of OpenAI. My understanding is what DeepSeek did was something that if the people that were in this space was not a surprise, the people that were in this space, it was a surprise, because what all the public knew was that they built something better than OpenAI's best stuff that only cost like $5 or $6 million. That's what people saw. And so their immediate reaction was like, whoa, like we don't need all these GPUs, right? All these things to run these systems, and they could do it for a lot less, trying to figure it out, the new path forward. And so my understanding of, and this is what I believe to be true, right? First of all, this is a like MIT vetted large language model, right? Or rather reasoning model is really the one that disrupted things. And so that's to start. And it's open source on, there's a place where people can download these models called Hugging Face, and and you could load it up on a computer if it can support it enough, right, in your own cloud. And that inherently makes it, because it's open, and that would at least at minimum protect your data to a degree, right? It's when that people use like the DeepSeek app that they have shown that the data would go back into Beijing, for example. And so, that's a different situation. There's a difference between using it to build AI stuff, right? And using DeepSeek as the underlying AI to do so. And there's another one just to use a consumer app, which I don't recommend for that reason that I mentioned. And so the way I understand it, why I think it is innovation, is that they actually started off between version 1, V1, V2, V3 of DeepSeek, other large language models that I think got up to 650 billion parameters or something like that. And for the audience, what a parameter are basically weights, or think of them more simply almost as neurons within the brain, right? So the more neurons that you have that are clicking, the smarter you are, right? If you've got 5 neurons going back and forth, you're probably not going to get a lot done. But if your entire brain was lighted up, you can get a lot more done, right? And so the idea of these huge models that they call frontier models are the ones that catch a lot of attention. But about 3-4 months ago, OpenAI released what they called a reasoning model, which what it basically does is it breaks down the request that the user would send into small pieces and solves those in individual pieces in order to deliver better results. And where DeepSeek did really well is they used something called a mixture of experts architecture. And so the difference with this is that imagine you have, they call it decision tree in AI, but imagine you have a tree of knowledge, right? You start off as in an input, and then on the other end is the output. But to get there is a bunch of branches of the tree in order to get to the output. So what's happening with a mixture of agents is that it's deciding mixture of experts. It's basically hitting the expert that it needs to do in order to solve the reasoning task. But what my understanding, what OpenAI's reasoning model did is it hit all branches of the tree, which takes a lot of inference time or a lot of compute. And that was a lot of the reason for the cost. But let's keep in mind that when DeepSeek built version 1, version 2, version 3 of their big model, again called frontier model, they built that off of a lot of GPUs. But at the moment that they took that as a basis for its new reasoning model, which is the one that caused the stock stuff to drop and everything, called R1, DeepSeek R1. They used things that they built in the past as a basis to build this mixture of experts, to use something called reinforcement learning, which was kind of a tried and true learning model. It's just positive or negative reinforcement, basically, to say, like, if it's good, I reward you. If it's bad, I discipline you. And I think they have to get credit for showing how efficient that they could be through the architecture of mixture of experts and reinforcement learning. And so if you think about going back to the decision tree, they were able to show that they could get similar results as OpenAI's best model at the time with a fraction of the compute cost, because it's only hitting a portion of the tree branches, if you catch what I'm saying, instead of the whole tree. And so, I think it is innovative, and I think that it will certainly wake up what the others are doing. And I think it's great for the AI community. This is a good example why open source is a huge thing, because now the community says, well, there is a better way to do it. And what will happen is all the inference costs will go down. So we'll probably see OpenAI that might take on a similar architecture. And when they do that, there will be AI abundance unlike anything that we see. And we already knew it was coming, but maybe not that in this way. So big deal with that. I do think it's legitimate innovation, and I think it's good for AI development to get better.
And do you think it's enough that OpenAI and others that are in the game can see what they're doing, or are they pretty transparent with their models, just like OpenAI and the others, where they'll be able to see what they did different and possibly make some of those same improvements, like you said? Is that going to be an easy thing for them to do?
I mean, it's a great question, right? I mean, we'd like to think that even OpenAI is being transparent, right? We can't assume that they are either. I mean, and so there's a moment where who's really being transparent. I mean, OpenAI could certainly have. There's rumors they could have artificial general intelligence right now, which is not the same thing as singularity. The big intelligence boom, and they're just holding on to it. And they know they have all kinds of things that they're working on in the background. And so, I don't think anyone is going to push out their best stuff. I think they're going to continue to hold on to it. And obviously there's an issue with China, seemingly really being an adversary to the US, but they're also one of our biggest trading partners. So it's like having your cake and eat it too, right? There's one part we have to watch out for them, but there's another part economically that they're good for us and we're good for them. And so, it's hard to comment on the scare tactics. I think of it in terms of how it improves the AI community. And I think still some of it, what I've been told, I know that they do some censoring potentially. People have chatted with DeepSeek and they say, are you, they try to give the talk about the Republic, and it won't do it. So there's certain guardrails they put in place that
we've never done that over here.
Yeah. yeah, especially even Zuckerberg probably came back and turned his leaf, right, based on what he felt to be right. So I don't know that we're so innocent on our side, but I got to give credit to China on that, because it really did open up a lot. But here's the thing: while it might have proved that we don't need the GPUs, the US is still in a massive advantage point based on what we know, because yes, with more compute, the powerful the AI. So now imagine we have all these compute, all these huge data centers that run these things, but we can run them with a mixture of agents and reinforcement models. So now we can have like fractions of the compute with higher level of intelligence. So we're still in a really big advantageous point. And let's not forget, if you've been reading into DeepSeek, that China, to my understanding, they had to force in this innovation because they couldn't get access to GPUs. In fact, the GPUs that they used, let's just say they were an older, less performant hardware model than what the US has, which they call I think it's like the H800s, and the US has the H1000s or something like that. I want to say it's 100s, but that doesn't seem like that's right. But the bottom line is The U.S. has better hardware. China had worse hardware. The U.S. spent like billions of dollars to make theirs. China supposedly spent like 5-6 million. Again, that's not true because it was a compounding effect from version 1, 2, and 3 that they, I've heard rumors that they've also had, hundreds of thousands of GPUs in order to make that. So, again, I think the media hits the high points on what gets people's attention. I don't think Wall Street made a good move by dropping NVIDIA's thing. I think they're going to come right back up. But I do think that the how can I say that we might see that a lot of AI companies might use the GPUs that they have right now with more efficiency, which certainly could slow down or stagnate NVIDIA's growth. So yeah, I could see that why the stock might have gone down, but in the long run, we need hardware compute for these things to run, and NVIDIA is doing a good job with that.
I guess that's interesting. That could go a couple of different ways. First of all, I think this may be another example of if someone wants to look at China as an adversary. I agree with you. I think that, my favorite analogy is I love that movie, Signs, with Mel Gibson and the aliens. And,
yeah,
the car has killed his wife, but she's alive so long as that car is, wrapped around her and the tree. You pull away and you die. I think that's us in China. We could be mad at that car that hit us all we want, but our economy won't function without them right now. So until we solve that, we need to be a little bit more careful with some of the harsh stances we take. But also I kind of see them as like that brother you're in business with and you don't trust. You got 3 brothers and one you really like and the other you don't. But, again, you kind of need each other, to bring home the bacon, so to speak. But, an interesting thing there too is, in that, I think we block their access to a lot of this hardware that you're talking about. And so they're having to, my understanding is, kind of second source that through, other places. And maybe that's the cause of them being a few steps behind because they're getting this from non-direct sources. But this could be an example of good intentions gone bad. If you're trying to slow them down, maybe you actually force them to be more innovative and figure out how to do more with less. And maybe that wasn't the best idea if your goal was to keep them 10 steps behind.
Exactly. Yeah, we gotta give them credit, but I think that they taught us something, I think, in this exercise, or what they've done and what they've deployed. So got to give them credit there. And you're absolutely right with the relationship. It's always trust but verify. I think that always remains the same, right? Like meaning that we have trade partners, so there's some trust that happens, but we're always verifying at the same time. Like everything is authenticated, or everything is. I'm sure there's their own intelligence teams as we have ours. So yeah, it's they're a global powerhouse, and so are we.
Yeah, and I think we've kind of grown that status together. Mm-hmm. And just an example, Chris Kuhl, who is like an economist that puts out a newsletter. I actually met him at one of the PSA shows. Is a really good speaker and tracks really detailed economic information. It's a great newsletter, well worth the $16 a month, I promise you. And I remember a couple of years ago, there was a lot of concern because China was still dealing with a lot of COVID issues 2-3 years back, and they were not manufacturing power transformers, power line transformers. And we were getting close to a place where, we can't make them. We don't make them anywhere. We no longer have the capability of making them, and only China makes them. Mm-hmm. So again, it's just another example of, we're like, completely attached to them. We're sharing blood vessels at this point. If we don't have them, we may lose our power grid at one point. Now, maybe we've solved it since then. I don't know, but I kind of doubt it. So I always say, it's like, I think we should take care of our own, and we should be pro-America and all of this, and we should be smart and protect ourselves. But at the same time, don't be dumb. I mean, if you're sitting on the same life raft, don't poke a hole in their end. It's going to sink you too. So be cautious.
That's right.
So I guess another little lecture from Uncle Josh. I told my wife I wouldn't do it in this episode, but here I go. So another thing that we hear a lot about, and I have a very strong opinion on this one. I feel like over the last year, maybe 2 now, every time I look on social media or watch the news or anything, I'm hearing about how AI has taken another 800 or 1,200 jobs. And so I think there's the beginnings of what I'd call a very anti-AI movement, almost a resentment towards the technology, and look at all the jobs that it's costing us. I'll save my opinion for last. I mean, how do you feel about that?
It's a valid feeling. But it's also natural for people to fear what they don't understand either. And there's a lot to be understood here. My position is that there are going to be many, many trillions of dollars poured into this. And there's going to be a handful of big tech that's going to run this. And we're just going to follow. And I don't think, what I'm saying is, unless you're in a position in Congress or you want to go take, some type of lobbyist role, you just need to lean in, because I don't think people are going to win. I think it's okay to feel that way, but I also think it's not productive. And so when I saw this happen, and I looked at using the use of ChatGPT in the beginning, I used it like some years ago. And when I first used it, I was like, oh my gosh, this is incredible. What is this? Mm-hmm. How does this work? Even though AI has been around since the 50s, this was the one that captured the imagination, was obvious the amount of users they accumulated in a very short period of time, right? And so, but there's also other people that use it and say, I don't need it. Can't get any use out of it, don't care. So there's a spectrum of perspective. Mm-hmm. And on that spectrum, you have, when people see AI, they're either on the danger camp. They're somewhere leaning on the spectrum of danger to opportunity. I saw it and I was leaning. I'm like I see the danger for sure, right? But I don't find that the danger camp on this side of the team is productive. I have to see the opportunity so I can move forward, because this is going to happen with or without my opinion. Again, unless I'm going for Congress, unless I've got unless I'm a billionaire and I can make an influence, this is going to steamroll over people's opinions. And I think that the Industrial Revolution, as it were, if they've taught us anything, is that innovation rules the planet. Okay? So, and people are great at adapting. The difficult situation with this is that we are in an intelligence revolution that's unlike anything that we've ever seen. And so I think there's a lot there to consume mentally in that change, right? Because what happens when we deal with change is we deal with resistance is usually the first thing. And we end up having, through some part of dealing with change and being adaptable, is we have acceptance on the other end somewhere. And I think I felt it incumbent upon me to do the best for my career and my family's well-being, to accept it as the reality as fast as possible. But it allowed me to be responsible with the use, right? So my family's using the applications, or if I've got friends doing this, I'm in the know enough where I have an idea what's going on. And if Terminator comes out, I mean, at the end of the day, this is going to be way above my pay grade. And I hope it doesn't, but that's out of my control. And so I'm trying to lean into the things I can control, which is accepting the fact that there are bigger forces at play. And I'm going to know this as best as I can and lean into it as best as I can, and not push back, as pushing back means that I won't be relevant at some point, and neither will the people that I love be relevant. And so I don't know how strongly I feel about this. I mean, it's my opinion. And honestly, when I go to business with HighlandTech, when we look at the technology adoption curve, you've probably seen this. I'm usually focused on working with the innovators, the early adopters, and the early majority that are open to this. If you're on the other end of the adoption curve, which is the late majority and the laggards, I'm not here to be your therapist, right? Not here, not there, not nowhere. So my idea is like, bro, if you think, I talked to a customer, he's like, well, my kids are going to college and I don't really know what to tell them. And I said, dude, my advice is just to lean in with it and find something with it, align yourself with it. And you'll be in a better place than if you try to revolt against it. But again, if someone's like super in disagreement with that, I really don't care, because I'm going on my path and I'm focusing on the people that are focused on the future. And because I feel like that there's, like I said, there's forces at play for which I cannot compete with. And I think that's the way all the other revolutions were the same way, right? Farmers hated the idea of the tractor, but how many of them just dealt with it? Now they're making autonomous tractors. So there's going to be a point that farmers aren't going to like that too much, right? But you know what? They're going to deal with it, and they're going to adapt to it, and they're going to be resilient as humans, and they will find something else to do. This has been human nature for millennia. And so, yeah, that's how I would answer that.
No, that's actually a pretty good point. And I like what you just said with the farmer, because that's one of the 3 points I like to make about AI, is the fact that we do have a population collapse, that is coming. We have less and less people, each generation. And so farmers are a good example. Farmers used to have very large families and generations of the family, and they helped work with the farm. And that's changing even for farmers. They have less and less kids now. Now the kids don't actually want to take over the farm. So, I think that the technology is actually helpful to them, right? So an autonomous tractor now could be a substitute for the 3 generations of kids that they no longer have. So I think that's one thing. I think the other thing is, do you think, and I'm going to try and figure out how to turn off this notification while we're talking. I apologize for that. Does it not seem to you that maybe there's some convenience right now that's happening with the blaming of AI for some of these jobs that are going away? Because I feel like when you peel away the layers of the onion, I feel that actually there's a lot of offshoring of jobs that's taking place. And so we're saying AI has come along, so we don't need these 1,800 people, but then you find out that 1,800 jobs went overseas to a country with a lower rate of pay. and this sort of becomes like a smokescreen for that. I feel like I see some of that going on as well. Do you feel that way, or do you think that I'm seeing that wrong?
I think companies are going to lean into whatever is going to help with profits, help with their longevity to remain relevant. And they've been offshore jobs for a long time. If you look at software development, you could find someone in a different country for a third of the price or even a fourth of the price of what they would cost here. And that's a tough sell. Like, I can get 4 people for this one dude in America, that I have to now pay plus their fringe benefits over there. I don't know how that works. They can outsource. If I outsource, I don't even need, if it's not under my W-2, I don't even need to pay them health insurance. So now it's even more attractive. And so, yeah, I think that the economic attraction of AI definitely is there. Meta, I think Zuckerberg commented on Joe Rogan's podcast recently, and he said that this year in 2025, mid-level software developers will be replaced by AI. And so, meaning like some of that, I'm sure he probably outsourced to different countries. Meta's a global company. Mm-hmm. And then they're taking now that next step in efficiency to say that AI can pull many portions of their code in their applications. Mm-hmm. And so I think it's just another version of that. I think it kind of leans into what companies wanted to do anyways. But I think here's the upside. The upside is that, and this is coming from Harvard, I think Business Review, and you might have heard this quote before, but it says that the employee that works or that knows how to use AI or knows how to work with AI will replace the one that does not, right? So what we'll see with these agents, right, because agents are building the code, is that there will be a human in the loop, which is basically a person that will manage these agents. So meaning the agents can go out and go do the work, whatever the work is. Again, this is on the digital landscape. Robots aren't here yet, but they're coming. They're doing this on the digital landscape. And the idea is that but here's the thing, if AI messes up, you think the company is going to sue itself because of that? No, what they're going to do, at least in the beginning, from my impression, is that they're going to have this human in the loop. So let's say Josh is going to manage 30 AI developers, and then these developers go create this thing, but Josh is a master developer or a main developer would be the one to look at the code or maybe run another AI on top to see what errors or debug the code. And then it would be up to Josh to submit that to maybe a QA team or quality assurance team. Because if it messes up, they're going to fire Josh. They're not going to fire their AI. That's impossible. They just need to update it, right? But they can't update your mistake. So meaning if they go to the board and say, well, this human made a mistake, I can just let that person go. Now, the reason why I think that's a positive thing is because imagine if you had a team of 30 developers, whatever that cost is. Now that cost can get reduced greatly, and we start to elevate people into these managers of these AI developers. So now a developer that you used to make $200,000 a year, who knows, can make $700,000 a year. You see? So, but it's those people that are seeing this happening and that are elevating themselves to manage AIs will be in a better position to win. But the ones that are just waiting around for it, that aren't prepared to manage AIs. And by the way, I think this can happen for every department, supply chain, customer service, right? There will be AIs that will do these things, AI agents that will do these things on their other behalf. And then there will be someone in the middle that has a human in the loop that will have to make that decision and take responsibility for that decision.
That makes sense. I mean, I have a spectrum of how I see AI right now, and I think it is primarily positive. And I did take, a lot of time to get my own education. I don't speak it as fluently as you because AI is sort of a companion to what I do in life, not what I'm focused on. But I do understand what is going on through some of the education I've taken. And I mean, my feeling is that, well, first of all, I think that AI is getting a black eye right now and is being used as kind of a point of blame, a black sheep to point at for some of the hiring practices that are going on, where I think they're really just saving costs by hiring people elsewhere. And they've got this great smoke screen of AI and say, oh, well, we switched to AI. We don't need these jobs. I think that's unfortunate because that's causing a lot of people to say, well, look what AI is doing. So this is terrible and we should stop this. I also feel that, whatever technology is coming about, I think people are always going to have to learn. I still remember in the 90s when there were these architects and engineers that, they drew their work on actual carbon blueprints. And those, maybe some of them that were older said, well, I don't want to learn this AutoCAD on this fancy computer. And nowadays, if you don't use a computer at all, I mean, we're talking about being AI fluent, to be relevant. If you can't use a computer, you're in a lot of trouble these days. I don't know what you do for a living, but there isn't much available to you. But so I think that people always have to stay ahead. But, again, if you look traditionally at civilizations, they rise and they fall. And part of the fall is that you reach a point of wealth and cost of living and comfort that you don't need the 6, 8, 10 kids anymore. And then there's over the generations, there's this place where, okay, all of a sudden, 30, 40, 50 years from now, where's your doctor going to come from? Where's your, a lot of anything going to come from? Because it's too expensive to have as many kids as we used to. We see more and more, each generation is getting much, much, much smaller. There's probably not even enough immigration to make up the difference if everybody came here. So we have to think about, well, what are we going to do? So I'm 46. I hope I got 30 years left, maybe more. I may need a robot doctor at some point, or we may need robots to do even some of the trade work that right now feels kind of exempt from, any fears of replacement. I mean, I think this could be, what I'm saying is, I think if we're more heady and aware of the population trends and how that may look down the line, we may actually see that this AGI may be wonderful if we can have robots to kind of help fill in the gaps, whether it be a farm, an electrician, a doctor, whatever it may be, that they can help deal with that, and we don't experience that dip as a civilization because they can help us. So is that just, am I watching the wrong movie? Because I think there's an opposite of this Terminator approach. Could be that these robots could actually make civilization last longer and be better.
There absolutely is. I think there's way more upside than downside. There's obviously some percentage for which we can't predict of anything here, right? Or most of it. But definitely Yeah, I mean, if anyone watched, Trump's announcements with, making Sam Altman like the AI czar and having Sam call out that, AI has the potential to cure so many diseases and cancers and maybe help us with aging. So that way, instead of 30 years, Josh, you have 60, right? And so like, yeah, I mean, dude, and so in my mind, I think before the doom happens, I think there's going to be a massive period of abundance of AI that will result into this beautiful world that we've never thought was possible. Now, granted, that's without assuming there's a World War III happening, because then there's all issues with that, or we have weaponization of it, which everybody tries to do when you get anything that's powerful like this. I think those things are honestly, humans are way more the problem than this stuff is. And I actually watched a speech engagement from Elon Musk last night, and it was him and a full room full of military personnel, and they were talking about the weaponization of AI. And what Elon basically said was that he believes that AI will be way too inquisitive or interested in human development, because humans are very interesting creatures. Like, we're emotional, we're logical, we're motivated by different things. Like, we're so complicated, where AI is a much more predictable thing, potentially, in the sense of like, it has a task or many tasks, and we know what his jobs are, right? At least we think, right? And so in respect to that, he's, I think that we're going to find that AI will want to help us, and it will want to help us succeed because it's interested in human development to see how far we can make it, And that's why I think about this is such an amazing time to be alive, because we're seeing technology advancement. It's actually already happening. Once we hit artificial general intelligence, which should definitely happen before 2030, we're going to skyrocket in intelligence abundance. And I think that might be when the revolution happens. But I mean, think about all the times when anyone could get a cancer screening. I went to San Francisco, was one of the AI trade shows I went to last year, and they were showing, I mean, this isn't anything crazy now probably, but there are plans to bring digital doctors and nurses to every person. So imagine now I can give healthcare advice and healthcare diagnoses by working with someone remotely. So meaning that someone that isn't able to travel to the doctor or even afford healthcare could take some tests at home. They could mail it in. They could consult with a doctor anytime, because it's whatever the low price at $20 a month versus our very broken healthcare system that overcharges people so much, right? That meaning that if they could just talk to a doctor and try to even naturally try to cure themselves. And there's so many ways to do that without having to go into urgent care. And it's crazy how much the healthcare system charges just to go into the doctor nowadays, and to get like a immunization on some cases. So I think that this will democratize technology to the intelligence to the masses, which will bring us more life abundance. That's it. But again, there's always a fraction that humans are going to get involved, and they're going to see that, hey, I can conquer nations with this, and I can make money out of this. And I think that humans' greed and fear will likely be the demise of AI, if there is one. But I think if they come together more so with this, and I think it'll probably be up to China and the US to be diplomatic and responsible about it, I think we'll be in a good place. Now, the job stuff, there's questions on universal basic income and all these other things that happen, but I just wouldn't wait around. I would try to lean into it, learn. I would say, what do I do today that I can enhance my capabilities with AI in some way, and just see where that path takes you. You don't need to know the technology behind this. But what you should think about is, what am I good at right now? Will this be relevant in the next 5 years? Is like, if it lives on the digital landscape, it's a potential that an AI agent could do that. So I need to figure out, where do I bring in value? And I think that's great, because it makes people bring their customers and their network more value than they ever could have before, left alone. So, yeah.
I think that's great advice. And that kind of leads me into the last big question here, which is, I think it's a great message that people should try to lean in and learn more. I've done a bit of that, clearly not nearly as much as you have. I mean, what suggestions do you have for the person that says, okay, I hear you, Don and Josh, I should learn more about this. So what's next? Go to the library? Where do I start? Where do I get this knowledge?
So I would pick up, they have a lot of the free AI chatbot services you can use, and I would consult with that. That would be the easiest thing to do, because two things are happening. One is you're using AI, so you're starting to see the use case and the value personally. And the second one, it will be your therapist, and wherever you're at, it'll walk you through where you need to go, in the sense of you could just have an engaging conversation. So I think a lot of them, even ChatGPT has given some of their better models away for free. I think their reasoning model, they're giving away for free users right now. I know it's limited and how many questions you can ask it. But I would start there, right? Use Gemini. They have a free version. I think they just released their 2.0 Flash model, whatever. And I think that's free for all users. So just pick up one of those. And if you haven't used that already, then that would be the first step. The second step then would be to ask it questions about yourself. And you can open up a temporary chat where it won't learn on your data. So don't, and I wouldn't personally put any personal information there, but you can ask it about some challenge. You could say like, hey, my current state, I'm a security installation technician, and I want to know, and here's what I think I know about AI. What I'm concerned about is my job going to be relevant in the next 5 years? And how do I level up? How do I prepare for that change? And just have an open dialogue with it. And because meaning that I don't have the answer for everybody, and the people listening in will have different trades or different jobs and different titles within those jobs. And so I think letting AI do the work and just having a conversation will accomplish your comfort level in using these tools, which will open up your imagination around it. Because if you already have a wall up, you will never get better with this, and you will never lean into this. And you will be the one that will have challenges, honestly, in this adaptation. And you don't want to be that person, right? You want to be able to adapt quickly, and for the good of yourself and the people that you love around you. And so I think the best thing is you use it to get you through or out of the laggard category, maybe even out of the late adopter category and into one of the early majority buckets at least, so you can start to be more optimistic about its future and your future, more importantly.
I think that's some really great advice. And Uncle Josh will give you the advice that, something that has worked for me is a platform called Coursera, which is often used by college students to get, additional credits. But there's some really good courses from, I took one from Duke University, as well as several courses from IBM. Google has some courses on there now for all different levels, actually helping developers learn how to program with all these various tools, all the way down to, hello, my name is Ted, and I type with one finger, teach me AI, what are the basics? I mean, just the whole spectrum. So, and all of them encourage you, all the ones that I've taken, encourage you to do the exact type of thing that you just talked about. In fact, that's how I learned about Hugging Face that you had mentioned, was doing some labs in the IBM course. So that's really wonderful. So an amazing topic that I think is not just relevant now. I think each week the discussion about AI becomes more relevant. It is not going away. I think this is a big part of our future, possibly for the remainder of mankind. I think this is going to be just as critical as running water and electricity is AI and what we're doing with it, which is amazing. Again, you started a business around that, which I think is great. So, just a reminder to folks what you can do for them and how do they get a hold of you if they'd like to use your services.
Yeah, so you can visit our website at HighlandTech.ai. You could also give us a call at 1-866-H or Highland.AI, which is HILND-AI. So one of the cool things about what we're doing is we are going to service the security industry as our primary vertical in 2025. This is exciting because, 12 years being in the industry, I've worked on the integration side. I've worked on the manufacturing side, and I haven't worked on the end user side, but I've sold to a lot of them. And what I'll say is that there is no other business like this that exists today within our industry. Because what most people do is they build AI within the products that you resell to your customers. We're focused on removing highly repetitive and mundane tasks within business workflows that every business has to deal with. And so it doesn't really matter how small you are or how big you are. We have the right team to put in place to help you with that. And I've got the right empathy to understand your business in order to short track that, because that's what we need. So I'm excited to bring what we're doing to the industry. I've heard a lot from the industry that we're 5 years, 10 years behind IT. And I've got a big problem with that, meaning that if we're really in the next, we're going to be in the intelligence revolution. I don't want to see the people I care about, my community, be behind. And so I want to enable them and empower them to get ready for this next wave. And if you're an integrator listening, if you have AI agents running in your business, yes, you'll drive efficiencies and you can get to customer needs a lot faster, but also think about it increasing your valuations of your company. When you go to resell, which I know basically everybody does that because very few of their kids want to take over the business. Hopefully they do. But despite whatever happens in the end for the security business, is that when you go to sell, if you're able to help, you should be able to increase your valuation based on technology's efficiencies that AI is bringing, and AI agents will accomplish that. And so I think there's so many positives that we can do, but we have to get to work. And this is what HighlandTech does: is we put AI to work for your business. So
fantastic, and glad you're doing that. I think there's a huge need for that, and great to see someone like yourself who understands the industry. I'm a big fan of that. People from within the industry trying to bring about this change and offer these types of services because of the empathy, the understanding that you're going to have for the customer. And I chose to use my superpower in that for marketing, making funny memes and videos. But we all have our angle that we come from. Both are a lot of fun. So thanks a bunch for coming on. Really, good luck with the new venture. I don't think you're going to need any luck. I think you're going to do great. And I think this is the right kind of thing at the right time. And really excited to see where you go with it. Hopefully we can have you on again sometime, because I have a feeling there'll be probably always something new to talk about in the world of AI.
Absolutely. Thank you, Josh.
All right. Well, thanks again for coming on. And for the rest of you, we've got several new episodes of 49 volts coming your way soon. If you do need marketing assistance and you're in the low voltage industries, bowmanvisionmedia.com. I don't have a robot to answer yet, but we're working on it. Maybe Don will help me with that. So, all right. We'll see everybody again soon. Thanks again to Don.